There's a ton of players in the NBA that at one point or another had a lot of hype, so they had something to prove to everybody. And year after year they failed to do that, and by this point it looks like it's time to give up on these players. We can only give them so many passes and so many opportunities before we finally do give up on them. Not completely as players, but on the fact that they'll be able to live up to the hype that they once had. And for these 8 players, I think we're at that point. Also, of course, there's a quick honorable mention here, and an example which is Andrew Wiggins. But it's quick because we all know it, we've been saying it for years. Wiggins is still a solid player, but we know we can pretty much 100% give up on him ever living up to the hype and playing like a #1 overall pick. Because it's just not going to happen at this point. And we can't even blame the Wolves anymore. Maybe that was an excuse before, but after playing nearly alone on the Warriors, without any other stars, and nothing about his game changed, and he couldn't lead them to wins either, it's officially time to give up. But now onto the real list, with number 1, which is Markelle Fultz. You know, maybe I'm jumping ahead here, it's still only Markelle's 3rd year in the NBA, but at least from what I've seen, I think it's definitely time we give up on Fultz, ever live up to the hype of being a former 1st overall pick. At this point, I don't think he's ever going to play like one, so we have to consider him a bust. Don't get me wrong, his 1st year in Orlando was solid, and it was great to see him finally playing a full season after all he's been through, but I don't know, I can't see him having just averaged 12 and 5, and then one day just develop back into the star he was supposed to be. He's still a terrible 3-point shooter, and everything about his career has just been sad and disappointing. I'm not saying he's just a terrible player or he won't have a good career, because I think he will. I think he's going to be in the league for a long time, whether that's as a role player or maybe even a near all-star. Just saying, he's never going to be a great 1st overall pick. Now, speaking of young players not living up to the hype, number 2 is Thon Maker. The man had a viral mixtape for playing like a 7-foot guard. The guy that was supposed to come in and change the way the game was played. The one that Kevin Garnett said was a future MVP in this league. Well, it's time to give up on all that, because we're 4 years into his NBA career and he's averaged a pretty consistent 4 points and 2 rebounds a game every single year. He had KG saying he was going to be an MVP and got drafted 10th overall straight out of high school and has been forgotten about ever since. I'm sure he also hoped that he would get a chance to play at either point guard or shooting guard to see if he could really play that positionless basketball, but up until now he's only played center, which probably wasn't easy for him, but still. It's like, I think people were expecting him to be the type of player that Bol is today, because he's actually a 7-foot player that can play on the wing effectively. Either way though, some may say it's too early to give up on a player that's only supposedly 22, but Thon Maker as an MVP or even just an all-star just isn't happening. Number 3, Tobias Harris. So I'm giving up on my hopes that Tobias Harris will ever be an all-star in his career. At one point, he really did look like he was headed towards becoming one. He started playing great in Detroit, got traded to the Clippers, and was averaging 20 points a game. Then they traded Blake Griffin, and Tobias helps lead LA to a very surprising season that ended off with a 48-34 record, and put them in the playoffs. And it was a good sign because he was still averaging 20 a game on 43% from 3. So he gets traded to the 76ers, and apparently they thought he was going to become an all-star, and a superstar too, because they gave him a max 5-year, $180 million contract. But ever since then, he's plateaued. He's continued to put up the same numbers, and that was probably Philly's worst nightmare in that situation. It also doesn't help that he's had to play on Philly's stacked roster. But even with no Ben Simmons, he really didn't step up in the playoffs and help Joel Embiid. He's still a very good player, but he's not going to be anywhere near the star that the 76ers predicted he'd become. Number 4, Frank Ntilikina and Kevin Knox. 2 of the Knicks' young players, and of course it's the Knicks, whose top 10 draft picks don't turn out as expected. Both Ntilikina and Knox were heavily hyped upon joining the Knicks. People said for a while that Knox had a lot of potential, and in Frank's draft report, he was said to be the best international player of this generation. Well, frankly, both of them have not been good players since entering the league. Sure, people will say Ntilikina is a good defender, but he's averaged 6 points a game in 3 years, so stop it. And I don't really ever see him being much more than a point guard off the bench. And Knox has only played 2 seasons, but I think he's a good role player at best. I don't know, maybe these guys weren't even worth including, but I just felt like there was a strange amount of hype around them a couple years ago, so I thought it was now worth a mention that it looks like those people were wrong about these 2. Number 5, Lonzo Ball. I don't know what it is, but every time I mention that Lonzo might not be as good as people expected, people always take a side and say I don't know what I'm talking about. But alright, it's his 3rd year in the league and he's consistently averaged 10, 7, and 6 every year, and this was his year to change that on the Pelicans, but it didn't happen. Again, don't get me wrong, he's a completely different player than he was as a rookie. He has a lot more confidence, and hopefully he keeps shooting the ball as well as he did this past season, which I think he will. I'm not crapping on any of these guys. And it's fine if he just continues to be the player he has been up until now, because every team could use a player like that that can facilitate and defend defend as well as he can. But we just may need to give up on the fact that he's ever going to be a superstar. That he's going to play with the aggressiveness of a superstar like he did in both high school and college. Well, he will never live up to the hype that his dad put on him, but he may never live up to the hype as being a second overall pick. But hey, if he doesn't, at least Markelle Fultz still takes a spot in the biggest bust of the 2017 draft. Number 6, Gordon Hayward. Let's just pause right here. He opted out of his $30 million player option that already made him way too overpaid, only for Michael Jordan to give him a contract where he gets $30 million more every year for the next 4 years. And I had him planned for this video even before he got that new contract, which says that much more about how terrible this signing was. And I mean, come on, how horrible can Jordan be as a GM? He's just now starting to get out of all the Hornets' bad deals, and he goes and creates another one of the worst contracts in the league. So originally I was gonna say that I think we can give up on Gordon Hayward being the all-star player he was on the Jazz or getting any better from here on out, but now I'm keeping that and also saying that we can already, before he's even played a game, give up on the fact that he'll ever live up to this contract. Number 7, Jabari Parker. Parker's another second overall pick that it's time to give up on. I've given him passes in the past because he either had injuries at bad times or just got stuck in bad situations on bad teams, and nothing's changed. That's still the case, but after 6 whole years of this happening, we gotta stop letting it slide. By now he should have chose to sign with the right team or been able to make it work on at least one of them that he's been on. I mean, second overall picks are supposed to be guys like Brandon Ingram, guys that eventually turn into stars. I mean, they're the second player picked. They're supposed to be the second best player that year, but instead Jabari's not even close. Hey, he is only 25, but still, I'm not getting my hopes up for his future anymore. Nothing against him, but myself and all of us have been waiting a long time to see something come from him, and it hasn't happened, so I've just given up hope. Then finally for number 8 we have Aaron Gordon, and he's another guy that anytime I say something bad about him, people get a little too upset. But all I'm saying is that it's also time we give up on the belief that Aaron Gordon becomes like this all-star player people are still hoping he will. He had his best season in 2018, and since then, his game's gone in the wrong direction the past 2 years. He hasn't made nearly as big of an impact on the Magic as he was expected, coming in as a 4th overall pick that was compared to Sean Marion and expected to play just like him, but he hasn't. Now I will say they do still have very similar styles, but Aaron hasn't played as good as Sean did. He is still a good player for teams to have. I'm not saying he's bad or he will be bad anytime in the future. Again, I'm just saying I don't see him being the player people expected him to be. I mean, after seeing how athletic he was in the dunk contest, I thought that was just becoming the start of his career. But at this point, that may be as good as it gets for him. Like, from that point on, Zach LaVine has only gotten better, but Aaron hasn't. And he's played 6 seasons in the NBA. I think if we were going to see him drastically get better or anything, it definitely would have happened by now. But comment and let me know what you think and drop a like on the video. Plus, subscribe and turn on post notifications so you never miss an upload if you haven't already. And with that said, I'll catch you next time.